Blaine sat alone in the dim light of her tiny room, staring at the cracked mirror. The reflection wasn't the problem. It was the cruel world outside that refused to see her for who she truly was. The jeers, the laughter, and the rejection were scars that words couldn't heal. School was a battlefield. Blaine walked the hallways with her head low, avoiding eye contact, but it never stopped the taunts. "Hey, Blaine, are you a boy or a girl today?" shouted one of her classmates, sparking laughter from the others. "Maybe neither," another chimed in. "Probably just a freak." The locker room was worse. The boys shoved her against the cold metal, their words sharp and cutting. "Why do you talk like a girl? What's wrong with you?" When Blaine didn't respond, they ripped open her bag and scattered its contents on the floor. Among the books and notebooks was a small tube of lipstick she had hidden away. "Look at this," one boy yelled, holding it up for everyone to see. "Blaine wants to be a girl. That's disgusting." Laughter erupted, and Blaine's face burned with humiliation as she scrambled to pick up her belongings, fighting back tears. Home was no refuge. Blaine's parents had always been strict, expecting her to be the perfect son they envisioned. But Blaine's quiet nature and gentle demeanor only brought their frustration to the surface. One evening, her father stormed into her room, holding the thrift store dress she had hidden under her bed. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice shaking with anger. Blaine froze, her heart pounding. "It's mine," she said quietly. "Yours," her father roared. "You're a boy. What is wrong with you?" Her mother stood in the doorway, her expression a mix of disappointment and fear. "Do you have any idea what people will say about us? About our family?" "I don't care what they say," Blaine shouted, tears streaming down her face. "This is who I am." Her father's face hardened. "Not in this house. If you want to act like this, you can leave. We won't have a disgrace under our roof." Blaine looked at her mother, silently begging for her support. But her mother turned away, her silence cutting deeper than words ever could. With a small backpack of belongings, Blaine left the only home she had ever known. The streets were cold, and the world felt even colder. Every door she tried to knock on, relatives, friends, was slammed in her face. "No, Blaine, we don't want any trouble." "You can't stay here. What will the niggers think?" The nights were long, and loneliness became her only companion. Blaine slept on park benches, crying herself to sleep, wondering if life would ever get better. One evening, Blaine found herself sitting outside a community center, shivering from the cold. A flyer on the door caught her eye. LGBTQ plus support group. All are welcome. Hesitant but desperate, Blaine stepped inside. She was greeted by warm smiles and kind eyes, a stark contrast to the cruelty she had faced. At first, she stayed quiet, listening as others shared their stories of rejection, pain, and survival. For the first time, Blaine felt understood. One member, Jamie, approached her after the meeting. "You're not alone," they said gently. "We've been where you are, and we're here to help." With the support of the group, Blaine began to piece her life back together. They helped her find temporary shelter, gave her clothes that made her feel like herself, and surrounded her with the love she had been denied. She started working at a local cafe and saved every penny, determined to create a life where she could live openly and authentically. One day, Blaine stood in front of a mirror in her new apartment, wearing the dress that had once caused so much turmoil. Tears welled up in her eyes, not from sadness, but from pride. Blaine knew society's cruelty hadn't disappeared. People still stared, whispered, and mocked her. But now she had the strength to hold her head high. Her parents' rejection still stung, but she had found a new family in her LGBTQ plus community. People who saw her, accepted her, and loved her for who she was. The journey was far from over, but Blaine was no longer afraid. She had faced the worst and survived. Now she was ready to thrive. Because even in a world that tries to break you, there is always a way to rebuild yourself. Blaine knew her journey wasn't over. Society still had a long way to go, but she had found her voice, her pride, and her strength. And for those who mocked, rejected, or turned away from her, here's the truth. Asterisk, every human being is a creation of God, deserving of love and respect. Asterisk, no one chooses their identity. It is who they are. Judging them for it is not just unkind, it's unjust. Asterisk, acceptance isn't just a kindness, it's a responsibility. Blaine's story is a reminder that everyone deserves dignity. Before judging, look into your own heart. God makes no mistakes, and every soul is precious in His eyes. Their struggles may be invisible to you, but their humanity should never be. Blaine's story isn't just hers. It's the story of countless others facing the same struggles. If you see someone being mocked, stand up for them. If you don't understand someone's identity, take the time to learn, not judge. Show kindness, because a small act of support can save a life. Let's create a world where no one feels the need to hide who they are. Remember, every person is a masterpiece of the Creator. Their existence is not a mistake, it's a gift. If Blaine's story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps bring more stories to light and spread messages of love and acceptance. Stay tuned as we move to our next story. There's so much more to explore and understand. Let's keep learning and growing together. I lost my family, my friends, and my home in a single day. Not because of a natural disaster or a tragic accident, but because I finally told them who I really am. My name is Alex, and this is the story of how I went from having everything to losing it all, just for being true to myself. But it's also a story of hope, resilience, and finding a new kind of family along the way. The letter sits on Alex's desk, its weight far heavier than the paper it's written on. His trembling fingers trace the edges, hesitating before sealing the envelope. This simple act will change everything. Alex's mind drifts back to his childhood. He remembers standing in front of the mirror, confusion etched on his young face as he tugged at the dress his mother insisted he wear. The fabric felt wrong, alien against his skin. In school, he'd watched the boys play, longing to join them but held back by an invisible barrier he couldn't explain. As the years passed, that confusion morphed into a deep, aching certainty. Alex knew who he was, but the fear of losing everything kept him silent. Now, sitting at his desk, that fear threatens to overwhelm him. His parents' smiling faces stare back at him from a framed photo, their love evident in their eyes. Will that love survive when they learn the truth? Alex's hand shakes as he reaches for the letter once more. The potential consequences of his decision flash through his mind like a grim slideshow. Rejection, anger, loss. Each possibility more painful than the last. He imagines his childhood bedroom stripped bare, his belongings tossed onto the street. The thought of his mother's tears and his father's disappointment twists his stomach into knots. Yet, beneath the fear, a small spark of hope flickers. Maybe, just maybe, their love for him will be stronger than their prejudices. Alex clings to this thought, using it to steel his resolve. He knows he can't continue living a lie. The strain of hiding his true self has taken its toll, leaving him exhausted and depressed. He yearns for the freedom to be authentically himself, to finally align his outer appearance with his inner truth. Taking a deep breath, Alex picks up the letter. This is it, the moment that will define his future. With shaking hands, he seals the envelope, his decision made. There's no turning back now. He stands, letter clutched tightly in his fist, and walks towards his parents' room. Each step feels like a mile, his heart pounding in his chest. As he approaches their door, Alex pauses. He can hear their voices inside, discussing mundane household matters. In a few moments, their world will be turned upside down. Alex raises his hand to knock, the sound echoing in the suddenly silent hallway. This is the moment of truth. Whatever happens next, Alex knows his life will never be the same. The knock echoes through the hallway, a sound that will forever divide Alex's life into before and after. What happens in the next few minutes will challenge everything he thought he knew about unconditional love. How quickly can a family's dynamics shatter when faced with an unexpected truth? Alex's trembling voice fades as he finishes explaining his identity to his stunned parents. The silence that follows is deafening, thick with tension and unspoken emotions. His mother's face crumples, tears welling in her eyes, while his father's expression hardens into a mask of anger and disbelief. The initial shock gives way to a storm of emotions. His mother's sobs fill the room as his father's voice rises, demanding explanations Alex can't provide. Words like confusion, phase, and disappointment cut through the air, each one a dagger to Alex's heart. He tries to explain to make them understand, but his pleas fall on deaf ears. The rejection is swift and brutal. His father's face reddens as he points towards the door, his words leaving no room for argument. "You're no son of mine. Get out." Alex stands frozen, unable to process the sudden shift in his reality. His mother turns away, unable to meet his gaze, her silence a painful affirmation of his father's decree. In a daze, Alex retreats to his room. He mechanically pulls out a duffel bag, stuffing it with clothes and essentials. Each item he packs is a reminder of the life he's leaving behind. Photographs, once treasured mementos, now mocking from their frames. He leaves them behind, unable to bear the weight of happier times. As he zips up the bag, the gravity of his situation hits him. He's about to become another statistic, joining the alarming number of transgender youth who find themselves homeless after coming out. The uncertainty of his future looms large, a yawning chasm of unknown challenges. With shaking hands, Alex reaches for his phone. Surely his friends will understand, offer support, maybe even a place to stay. But as he scrolls through his contacts, a creeping dread settles in his stomach. One by one, his messages are met with silence, read receipts glaring back at him accusingly. When responses finally come, they're filled with confusion, anger, and in some cases, outright rejection. The last glimmer of hope fades as Alex realizes the true extent of his isolation. He stands on the sidewalk outside his childhood home, duffel bag at his feet, completely alone. The weight of his decision presses down on him, doubts creeping in like shadows at dusk. Was being true to himself worth losing everything? As night falls, Alex finds himself at his lowest point, questioning every choice that led him here. The future, once bright with possibility, now stretches before him, uncertain and daunting. As the dust settles, Alex finds himself at a crossroads. The initial shock of losing everything gives way to a quiet determination. He reaches out to local LGBTQ+ support groups, finding a welcoming community that understands his struggles. Here, he meets others who've walked similar paths, their stories both heartbreaking and inspiring. Slowly, Alex builds a chosen family. A kind-hearted couple offers him a spare room. A trans support group becomes his weekly anchor. At a job fair for LGBTQ+ youth, he lands an entry-level position at a progressive company. These small victories add up, each one a step towards stability and self-acceptance. Alex's journey is far from over, but he's no longer alone. He now understands the vital importance of LGBTQ+ resources and the power of finding your tribe. To those facing similar challenges, Alex's message is clear. Your truth is worth fighting for. There's a whole community waiting to embrace you just as you are. Did you know that 54% of transgender youth report being verbally harassed at school? For Ayan, growing up transgender in a conservative town, this statistic wasn't just a number, it was their lived experience. In this video, we'll go beyond the statistics to show you the real human impact of growing up transgender in an unaccepting environment. Through Ayan's story, you'll gain a deeper understanding of the challenges faced by transgender individuals and the incredible resilience it takes to overcome them. A small hand reaches up, touching the cool surface of the mirror. 5-year-old Ayan stares intently at the reflection, a frown creasing their young face. Something doesn't feel right, but Ayan can't quite put it into words. Ayan's hometown of Millbrook is a place where tradition reigns supreme. Picket fences line neatly manicured lawns, and the church spire dominates the skyline. In this tight-knit community, roles are clearly defined, and deviation from the norm is met with raised eyebrows and hushed whispers. At home, Ayan's parents reinforce these societal expectations. Their father, a respected local businessman, speaks of Ayan following in his footsteps, Their mother lovingly picks out dresses for special occasions, beaming with pride. But each compliment about being a perfect little girl feels like a stone in Aeon's stomach. As Aeon grows, the disconnect between their inner self and the world's expectations intensifies. At school, they gravitate towards activities and friendships that feel more natural, only to be gently but firmly redirected. "That's for the boys," a teacher says, steering Aeon away from the truck toys. The sting of these corrections accumulates, leaving Aeon feeling increasingly isolated. Desperate to fit in, Aeon throws themselves into being the child everyone wants them to be. They force smiles when given dolls for birthdays, join in games they don't enjoy, and mimic the mannerisms of their female classmates. But the act is exhausting, and the feeling of wrongness persists. What Aeon doesn't know is that their experience aligns with early signs of gender dysphoria in children. Persistent discomfort with one's assigned gender, preference for cross-gender activities, and expressing a desire to be a different gender are all indicators that professionals look for. As Aeon approaches their 10th birthday, the pressure to conform becomes unbearable. The mirror that once puzzled them now feels like an enemy, reflecting an image that feels increasingly foreign. One day, overwhelmed by emotions they can't fully articulate, Aeon decides to confide in Ms. Patel, a kind-hearted teacher who has always shown them extra attention. With trembling hands, Aeon explains their feelings, the words tumbling out in a confused rush. But instead of the understanding they hoped for, Aeon is met with a look of concern and discomfort. Ms. Patel awkwardly pats their shoulder, mumbling about it being just a phase before quickly changing the subject. The rejection, though gentle, cuts deep. As Aeon leaves the classroom, the harsh reality of their situation settles in like a heavy fog. In Millbrook, being different isn't just difficult, it might be impossible. The fog of rejection lifts, revealing a harsh landscape. Aeon stands at the edge of adolescence, about to navigate a world that seems designed to exclude them. What does it take for a young transgender person to survive in a community that refuses to understand? As Aeon enters middle school, the hallways become a gauntlet of whispers and sideways glances. Every step feels like walking on eggshells, with classmates scrutinizing their appearance and mannerisms. The once familiar faces of childhood friends now wear expressions of confusion or outright hostility. Aeon's days are filled with a constant state of hypervigilance, always on guard for the next taunt or shove. At home, the atmosphere grows increasingly tense. Aeon's parents, once proud of their perfect little girl, now exchange worried glances and hushed conversations. Family dinners become battlegrounds of unspoken disappointment and misunderstanding. Aeon's attempts to express their true self are met with dismissal or anger. It's just a phase, their mother insists, while their father's silence speaks volumes. The toll on Aeon's mental health is devastating. Studies show that transgender youth who face rejection from family and peers are at significantly higher risk for depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. Aeon finds themselves withdrawing, their grades slipping as they struggle to focus on anything beyond survival. In desperate search of understanding, Aeon turns to the internet. Late at night, huddled under blankets with a dim phone screen, they discover online communities of transgender individuals sharing their experiences. For the first time, Aeon feels a glimmer of hope. They're not alone. This newfound knowledge becomes both a lifeline and a source of conflict. Armed with the language to describe their identity, Aeon musters the courage to confront their parents. The conversation quickly escalates into a shouting match with accusations of betrayal and pleas for Aeon to snap out of it. The night ends with slammed doors and tears. In the aftermath, Aeon faces an impossible choice: continue living a lie or risk losing everything they've ever known. With a backpack hastily filled and a heart heavy with both fear and determination, Aeon steps out into the unknown. The future is uncertain, but for the first time, it holds the promise of authenticity. As Aeon walks away from their childhood home, a new chapter begins. The search for acceptance and a chosen family awaits, along with the challenges of navigating a world that's often hostile to transgender individuals. But with each step, Aeon moves closer to living as their true self. Years later, Aeon returns to Millbrook, no longer the scared child who fled, but a confident advocate for transgender rights. They establish a support group and safe space for LGBTQ plus youth in the community center, providing the understanding and acceptance they once desperately sought. Ion's journey inspires others to share their stories, slowly changing hearts and minds in the conservative town. They organize workshops for local educators and healthcare providers, improving support for transgender individuals. While challenges remain, Ion's presence offers hope to those still struggling. Their story demonstrates how one person's courage can ripple outward, creating change even in unlikely places. Ion's fight for acceptance has become a beacon, showing that authenticity and compassion can flourish anywhere given the chance to grow.